March 21, 2026 Randy Orton vs Cody Rhodes Undisputed Championship match. WWE SmackDown highlights this match happened on SmackDown the night before WrestleMania. Read that again and let the weight of what that sentence contains fully settle. The Undisputed Championship match between Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes, the program that the wrestling world has been building toward through every promo, every backstage message, every calculated psychological operation and every brilliantly executed heel turn moment happened on SmackDown on March 21, 2026. Not at WrestleMania. Not on the grandest stage. On the last SmackDown before WrestleMania weekend. And the result is going to change every single conversation this community has been having about WrestleMania 42. Half of the wrestling world right now is experiencing the specific, disorienting shock of a major championship match result arriving in a context that they did not fully prepare for. Of having their WrestleMania predictions, their carefully constructed analytical positions about who the champion would be walking into the biggest event of the year and what that meant for the match, and the program's conclusion rendered either confirmed or completely obsolete by a result that arrived a day earlier than the stage that results of this magnitude are supposed to arrive on. The other half is asking the question that anyone who has been watching professional wrestling long enough to understand how the final week programming before WrestleMania functions always asks when something this significant happens on this specific show. Why here? Why this match? Why the Undisputed Championship between Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes on the final SmackDown before WrestleMania instead of at WrestleMania itself, where everything this program has been building suggested it was pointed? The answer to that question, or rather, the multiple competing answers that the wrestling world is currently processing simultaneously, is the most important piece of analytical work this community can do in the final 24 hours before WrestleMania 42. And this video is going to give you every dimension of it. Let's go through the championship match between Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes on SmackDown March 21 with the full analytical attention it deserves. Because SmackDown delivering this specific match at this specific moment is itself a piece of information about the state of the program, about the specific creative decisions surrounding WrestleMania week, about what this match was designed to accomplish that the WrestleMania stage alone could not have provided in quite the same way. The match carried the weight of everything the program has built. Randy Orton's heel turn. The message on March 20th. The unconscious Cody on the SmackDown canvas from weeks past. Every component of what the apex predator has been constructing since the moment his character committed fully to the heel position was present in that ring on March 21st. The specifically cold, patient, precision-focused version of Randy Orton that the 2026 heel commitment produced, the one for whom the match is not an expression of competitive urgency but the execution of a plan whose conclusion he had already determined before the bell rang was fully operational. And Cody Rhodes walked into that match carrying everything we documented. The March 20th message. The psychological installation that Orton delivered 4 days before WrestleMania. The specific weight of a program that has consistently targeted the specific things Cody Rhodes carries, not his physical capacity, but the psychological dimension, the internal certainty, the specific quality of self-knowledge that the American Nightmare story requires its protagonist to maintain through the most challenging circumstances the story produces. The match between these two men on SmackDown March 21 was the kind of match that championship programs produce when both parties are operating with full investment in the specific things at stake. Not just the championship. Not just the result. The argument. The specific philosophical argument that this program has been making since Orton's first RKO connected with Cody Rhodes' unconscious body on a SmackDown mat. The argument about whether the American Nightmare story is real enough, durable enough, fundamentally true enough to survive the specific, targeted, intelligently constructed campaign that the apex predator has been running against it. The match was the argument in physical form. And the argument produced a result. The result of the Randy Orton vs Cody Rhodes Undisputed Championship match on SmackDown March 21, 2026, is the most consequential single piece of information available in professional wrestling on the day before WrestleMania 42. And the specific implications of the result depend entirely on who you ask, which tells you everything about what the result actually is. Because a championship match result the night before WrestleMania is not simply a result, it is a reorientation, a resetting of the entire WrestleMania landscape based on new championship information. A fact on the ground that every pre-WrestleMania prediction, every analytical framework, every carefully constructed understanding of what the program between Orton and Rhodes was building toward must now be reconciled with. If Cody Rhodes retains the Undisputed Championship on SmackDown March 21, if the American Nightmare goes into WrestleMania as the champion he was before the match, with the result confirming that Orton's campaign, however brilliantly executed, has not yet accomplished its ultimate objective, then WrestleMania 42 contains a different match than it would have if the championship had changed hands. A match where Orton pursues something he has now tried to take on the night before WrestleMania and failed to take. Where Cody carries not just the championship but the specific competitive momentum of a championship retention against the program's most significant threat. Where the psychological message Orton installed on March 20 has been publicly, physically answered by a retained championship. If Randy Orton wins the Undisputed Championship on SmackDown March 21st, if the Apex Predators calculation produced the result that the calculation was designed to produce, with the championship changing hands the night before WrestleMania rather than at it, then WrestleMania 42 contains something else entirely. The most dramatic possible inversion of the program's expected conclusion. Cody Rhodes going to WrestleMania as a former champion. Randy Orton going to WrestleMania as the champion who won the title the night before WrestleMania on a SmackDown that the world did not expect to contain the championship change. Both results are genuinely possible. Both have been produced by WWE programming in comparable circumstances across the history of WrestleMania build weeks. And both create genuinely different WrestleMania stories that the wrestling world would invest in for different reasons and with different emotional profiles. The result of March 21st determines which of those stories WrestleMania 42 tells. Let's set aside the results' implications for a moment and talk about what the championship match on SmackDown March 21st delivered in terms of the specific, in-ring quality that a Cody Rhodes vs. Randy Orton championship match should deliver when both performers are operating with everything this program has invested in their characters behind them. These are two of the most complete professional wrestling performers alive. Whatever the differences in their career profiles, their histories, their specific positions in WWE's current programming landscape, the in-ring craft that both Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes bring to a championship match of this magnitude is unquestionable and irreplaceable. Randy Orton at full heel commitment, with the 2026 version of the Apex Predators cold, calculated, precision-deployed competitive intelligence fully operational, is one of the most compelling performers to watch in championship match context that professional wrestling currently has available. Because the heel commitment does not simply change the character's motivation, it changes the specific quality of every in-ring decision. The heel Orton of 2026 is not making decisions based on competitive momentum or responding to opponent pressure with the tactical adjustments that competitive wrestling requires. He is executing a predetermined sequence of competitive choices toward a predetermined outcome. He is not fighting Cody Rhodes. He is completing a process. And watching the process being completed, watching someone in a championship match with the absolute confidence of someone for whom the result has already been settled in their own mind, is a specific kind of unnerving that great heels produce and that Randy Orton in this specific mode has mastered. Cody Rhodes in a championship match context is the opposite of that specific quality. Cody Rhodes is wrestling like it matters. Like the result is in genuine competition between the participants' competitive capacities. Like the crowd's investment in his story is something that the match is actively honoring through the urgency and the genuine risk that every competitive exchange communicates. The American Nightmare in a championship match context is the embodiment of why championship matches are supposed to feel like they could go either way right up until they do not. The collision of those two competitive philosophies, Orton's predetermined process and Cody's genuine urgency, is the specific, irreplaceable thing that this match delivered. And SmackDown on March 21st was the stage for it in a way that tells you this was always going to be more than a pre-WrestleMania episode of SmackDown. The question that the wrestling world cannot stop asking about Randy Orton vs. Cody Rhodes on March 21st SmackDown is the one that the result alone cannot answer. Why here? Why not WrestleMania? There are honest creative answers to this question that deserve engagement rather than dismissal. A championship match on the final SmackDown before WrestleMania serves specific storytelling functions that the WrestleMania match alone cannot provide. It establishes the championship's current status with absolute clarity, removes ambiguity about who holds the title heading into the biggest event. It produces a specific emotional beat, either the champion's pre-WrestleMania validation or the challenger's pre-WrestleMania conversion to champion, that WrestleMania can then build upon rather than establish. It gives the program an additional competitive chapter that creates the specific kind of unresolved tension that drives WrestleMania interest better than any amount of promotional material. And there is a more complex creative answer. One that involves the specific story this program has been telling and the specific way it needs to be concluded for the conclusion to carry the full weight of everything the setup invested in it. A program that has been fundamentally about psychological war, about Randy Orton's calculated campaign against the specific things that make Cody Rhodes most dangerous, needs its in-ring conclusion to happen in a context where the psychological dimension is most present and most consequential. The SmackDown Championship match, happening 4 days after the message Orton delivered on March 20th, is the match happening closest to the psychological installation, where the message's effect, positive or negative for Cody, depending on whether it fueled or flooded, is most present in the competitive environment, where the result is most directly connected to the psychological warfare that produced it. WrestleMania 42 is the stage, but March 21st SmackDown was the truth. WrestleMania 42 is 24 hours away. And what happens at WrestleMania between Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes if their program continues to WrestleMania, if the March 21st result creates the specific conditions for a WrestleMania rematch or resolution, is now understood through the lens of what SmackDown produced. If Cody retained on March 21st, WrestleMania 42 is the Orton-Rhodes program demanding a conclusion on the biggest available stage. The championship is on the line. The psychological campaign continues. And the American Nightmare has to prove at WrestleMania that the SmackDown retention was not the exception but the rule. That Orton's calculation was always wrong. That the story Cody has been building is exactly as durable as the audience's investment in it has always said it was. If Orton won on March 21, WrestleMania 42 is the American Nightmare's redemption story. Cody Rhodes going to WrestleMania as a challenger pursuing the championship that was taken the night before is the American Nightmare story in its most concentrated, most emotionally complete form. The comeback from the most recent defeat. The WrestleMania conclusion that the entire year has been pointed toward, even when the path to it involved a detour through losing the championship on the last SmackDown before the biggest night. Either version is extraordinary. Either version delivers the specific WrestleMania emotional stakes that the best programs produce. And the wrestling world going into WrestleMania 42 with either version available knows that what the ring delivers on Saturday is going to be the answer to a question that the SmackDown Championship match made more urgent and more personal than it was before. Randy Orton vs. Cody Rhodes for the Undisputed Championship happened on SmackDown March 21, 2026. The result changes the WrestleMania 42 landscape. And this community, the community that has been following every chapter of this program with the analytical engagement and the emotional investment that Wrestling News CC's audience always brings, is the right place to have the most complete version of the conversation about what it means. I need every take in the comments right now. Did the SmackDown Championship match produce the result you predicted, and if it did not, does the result change your WrestleMania prediction or create a new one? Is a championship match on the final SmackDown before WrestleMania the right storytelling decision for this program, or does it diminish the WrestleMania moment, and can you defend the position with evidence from the match's delivery? And the question that the entire wrestling world needs answered before WrestleMania 42's card is complete given what March 21 produced: what does Cody Rhodes vs. Randy Orton at WrestleMania 42 look like, and what does the result of that match say about the program's central argument? Drop every word in the comments. Share this video immediately with every wrestling fan you know, because the SmackDown Championship match the night before WrestleMania is the most important piece of wrestling television in the final 24 hours before the biggest night of the year, and this breakdown is the most complete analysis of what it means available anywhere. Subscribe to Wrestling News CC and activate every notification, because WrestleMania 42 is tomorrow, and when it delivers its final answers, this community needs to be watching in real time. The Undisputed Championship match happened on SmackDown March 21, 2026. The result is on the record. WrestleMania 42 is 24 hours away, and everything it contains is different now because of what SmackDown produced tonight. The story that started when Randy Orton committed to being a villain ends tomorrow, and after tonight, neither champion nor challenger goes to WrestleMania the same way they would have arrived without March 21. The grandest stage, the biggest answer, the last night before everything.